Former President Donald Trump has arrived at the Trump Tower in New York ahead of his historic booking and arraignment on hush money charges as the nation's largest city bolstered security. The case against Trump stems from payments made during his 2016 campaign. Prosecutors say the case against him has nothing to do with politics and have defended the work of Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg, who is leading it. Trump is facing multiple charges of falsifying business records, including at least one felony offense in the indictment handed down by a Manhattan grand jury last week. Trump is the first former president of the United States to face criminal charges. There is betting he could actually boost his chances at winning the presidency again next year. The former president is expected first to surrender at the office of the Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg before he is arraigned in court. Joining us now from our Abuja studio is Ambassador Joe Keshi, a former Nigerian diplomat. Good morning, Ambassador Keshi. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Ruben, and good morning, Rufai. Rufai, nice to see you still sitting in Kangpi.
Morning, sir.
Well, Ambassador Keshi, what lessons
Yes, sir.
can we, particularly in Nigeria, or if you like, in Africa, draw from this historic arraignment of a former American president who had conducted himself long before now as if he's a law itself?
It's a very simple lesson that nobody is above the law. Very simple, that nobody is above the law. And that you could get away with so many things for as long as it's possible. But certainly one day the law would catch up with you. And this is what has happened to Donald Trump. Bear in mind that this is not the only case he's facing or will face. There is an outstanding one in Atlanta, Georgia, and there are two others in Washington, D.C. And so it's a whole, a bunch of legal trouble that the president, the former president, has gotten himself into. But this is, if you know Trump very well and if you had followed his trajectory, this is long in coming. But you know that popular saying, one day for the owner of the house, so many days for the thief, one day for the owner of the house. And I think after escaping the law and boasting, once that he could actually shoot somebody on the streets of New York and nothing would happen, I think finally something is it's happening. But the lesson is that leaders and everybody in the world, everybody in this country in particular, should know that nobody is above the law. And that for Trump, this has been long in coming, and it's now facing the first of probably so many legal issues that he'll probably face, even if he's going to run for the 2024 presidential election. There's a case in Atlanta, Georgia, and there are two cases waiting for him in D.C., Washington. And so the lesson is that, look, you might escape from so many things, or from the law once or twice, 3 or 4 times, but one day the law will certainly catch up with you, and that's what has happened to him today. Let me say this: he's not been found guilty, but the fact that a former president is going to be arraigned in court in the United States, the first of its kind, I think is truly historic. But around the world, well over 60 presidents and prime ministers have actually been tried for one offense or the other anyway.
Okay, I'll ask you this question honestly. Do you think this can ever happen in Nigeria?
Well, let's not lose hope that one day we'll begin to get it right. Right now, it's probably impossible because of the fact that the people who are supposed to dispense justice in this country actually don't know what they are supposed to do, particularly like the police. You think any policeman or any criminal investigator in this country would care to investigate anybody? we've just gone through an election, and so many things went wrong in the election. The beavers. I gave an interview recently where I said, if this had happened in the United States, the CIA would actually want to know what happened to the beavers, whether it was tempered or it was not tempered. Instead, what do you find in this country? We are being told by the DSS in particular that we should be careful. We shouldn't overheat the system. We shouldn't do this. We should be careful of this and that. Instead of sitting down and finding out if the electoral process was tampered with. And that is the challenge we have in this country, that agencies are not doing what they are supposed to do. In fact, I keep saying this anytime I'm here, and I have the opportunity to say this. The agencies have actually lost any sense of understanding of their mandates. I see a lot of policemen in Abuja, things are happening before them. They can't even intervene. They appear completely lost as to what to do. So if they can't just do the simple things of arresting taxi drivers, of maintaining law and order in a petrol station, is it going to investigate the president or who? Is that what they are going to do? Certainly no. Nobody is going to do that in this country. Let's be honest with ourselves. But let me say this, one day it would happen. So everybody who is watching this in New York today, again, I say this, so many other presidents in other parts of the world and prime ministers, have been in this kind of situation. Only last week or 2 weeks ago, the British Parliament was investigating the former prime minister. And so let's nobody think that it will never happen in this country. One day, certainly, we will find men of courage and integrity in the system that would honestly throw the challenge to the authorities that they want to go beyond just picking up the ordinary citizens and trying them.
Well, why the historic value of Trump's arraignment is important, and we can draw lessons from it. But is there also something to be said about privilege that a former president enjoys? One, he's not going to be physically arrested. He will show up on his own. Two, nobody is going to put him in handcuffs. Three, his mugshot is not going to be taken. The media will not be allowed to cover other than just taking pictures, and they will be asked to leave the court before arraignment. So it looks like even in the United States, a former president can be treated even when he's been indicted and he's been arraigned like he's royalty. Is that part of the protocol? Does that not give him special privileges?
Well, yes, it is fair to do that. This is not being done to Donald Trump as Donald Trump. It's, again, a mark of respect for the presidency itself. I think we should not look so much about the protocol, but that the man who has occupied the post of a president has actually, found himself in stormy waters, as a result of, not only Stormy Daniels, but yes, I think it should be given to him.
Good pun, good one.
Particularly because he agreed to come over to New York to present himself. And look, in the United States, if you agree to do some of these things, they grant you some privileges. It is when you become when you become kind of stubborn and aggressive that they go into these details. But once you show up, they kind of treat you with some modicum of respect, because the law is very clear. You are not guilty until the court pronounces you, guilty. So I don't really quarrel with the privileges being given to him. In fact, to be candid, I remember watching a program where some analysts were debating whether Trump would turn up or whether he will resist or whether he will create some scenes. But there was 2 or 3, persons in that conversation that said, look, if you guys know Trump very well, he's going to turn up because he likes the publicity. He's going to use this to raise money, and he's going to make a hell noise out of this, as he's done in the past, over, when he finds himself in in stormy waters like this. So, look, it's an interesting case that I think we should all watch. But as you said, there are lessons to be learned from it for leaders, whether presidents, ministers, permanent secretaries, all officials, bankers. Everybody must begin to learn a lesson that one day or the other, justice will be served.
I mean, isn't this even an indictment on the American judicial system? Because it is not today Trump has been doing it. He's been doing it for well over 50 years. At some point, he was mentored by one of the most brutal lawyers in New York, Roy Cohn, that taught him how to countersue, and the words he can't countersue, he just quickly settled. So, over 50 years, the American legal system is just catching up with him. What would you say about this?
Well, look, the wheel of justice sometimes is very slow. But at the end of the day, justice is served. You are right, Rufai. Look, Trump has been going through this for years. I can't remember any time that the years I've known, followed, and read about Trump, I can't remember when Trump is not in trouble. And that's the honest truth. He just has this capacity or ability to get himself into trouble. He relishes it, he boasts about it, and he goes out to fight the court system. But this particular issue has been long in coming because he has found one way or the other, to manipulate the system to his advantage. But here we are. Look, this is what is happening. It's happening in the United States of America. And no matter how long it takes, and I've said this before, and again, I'll go back to what I said about our security agencies here. You don't come out and issue threats and issue warnings and so on. No. You go ahead and investigate the case. Some people have been investigated for some 15 years, and eventually, when they caught them, it was easy to send them to jail. So quietly sit, take a back seat, watch, and do what you're expected to do, not jump into the media and begin to issue threats and things like that. So Trump has been under investigation one way or the other. Remember before the presidential election, I think in 2016, how many cases he settled, including the fake university? He went on quickly to settle some of these cases, and it was in an attempt to settle Stormy Davids, that some of these issues started to come to the fore. So eventually, I make the point that the law will catch up with, people who have violated the law. It's as simple as that. And that is what we should learn in this country. And that is what our agencies, the security agencies, the police, the EFCC, and everybody, you don't have to rush. You don't have to embarrass anybody in the newspapers. Quietly, behind the scene, do your job. When you are sure you have all the concrete evidence, go to court. Now, this is different from the cry, go to court on electoral matters. So this is real going to court and establishing your case before the judges, and justice will be done. So, but look, we need to just wait and see the charges, because I have a feeling that the tax issues would also come up. I do not think that the 30 offenses that will be read out to former President Trump is all about having a good time with a prostitute. I doubt it. Come on, 30? No. A number of other issues will come up, including the tax cases.
Okay.
And tax cases in the United States is a very serious offense.
Well, as elsewhere, tax evasion is a crime anyway. The tax avoidance, you can get away with that. But President Trump insists that he's a victim of political persecution. And he has also said the judge hates him, and that the judge should in fact indict himself and not think about, Donald Trump. Do you think that there's some merit to his claim that this is a witch hunt, political witch hunt?
No, absolutely no merit. And this is why. Donald Trump's lawyers have walked that back. they have worked that statement that the judge, hates him. But look, Ruben, if you followed Trump presents himself, every time Trump has a problem, Trump presents himself as a victim. It's the system against him. It's a political witch hunt. There's another word he's fond of using that I'm trying to remember. Look, this has been classical Trump, position. Trump has a playbook. And anytime he's in trouble, he just picks up that playbook and then play from that playbook. So this is nothing. In fact, it's not a surprise to me today. The only thing I just find interesting, rather than to say surprise, is the amount of Republicans, leaders jumping into the fray, to defend him. But they're also doing this not with a sense of sincerity, but for their own political survival, because they think that there are still so many, Trump supporters who might be angry if they say something negative or against Trump at this particular time. But I have a feeling that sooner or later, when the dust settles, everybody will come back to the reality, particularly after the charges have been unsealed and they see the magnitude of the challenge that Trump has to face in the New York court. But this is certainly not a witch hunt. And by the way, this has been going on for years. Investigations have been going on for years. Trump has had an issue with his taxes before he ran for the presidency. That was why he was unable to make public his tax returns. And for so many years, Trump has been in court to ensure that his tax returns were not released. And eventually they were made public. And of course, it came out that he certainly had something to hide. So this is not a witch hunt. But if you are Trump, this is from Trump's classical playbook. And there's something Trump is doing today or saying today that those who are familiar, who knows Trump very well, particularly the media in the United States, nobody is surprised, nobody is shocked. The only thing is that it is historical to the extent that a president of the United States is being arraigned in court. First time in the United States.
All right, when we dial back historically, he's the first former president to be indicted, but we've had American leaders getting indicted. One very prominent one was Agnew Spiro in the 70s. That was Nixon's vice. And it was like a foretaste of what was to come with Nixon himself with the Watergate scandal. When you look at, indictments like that over the years, a lot of people are saying, why is it that Trump has always wriggled himself out of the possibility of stopping his presidential ambition? I'll give you an instance. When he was impeached twice, the Republicans deliberately voted and supported him in a bill that will stop any attempts for making him run in future presidency. So why is Trump such a Teflon?
Well, I think because Trump is Trump. There's no better way to describe the situation. Look, people learn lessons. Remember in 2016, there were 16 Republicans running to be president of the United States during the primaries. Trump simply demolished every one of them. And he did it in a very classical way. Everyone that was on the podium with him, starting from, I'm trying to remember this senator from Florida. Every one of them had a name. So people, right from then, the way Trump was going, Republican leaders became afraid that...
Former Florida Governor Jeb Bush.
No, not Bush. I remember his name, the short guy. Look, the point is that Trump has actually, because of his caustic, behavior, because Trump cares little or nothing about anything or about anybody. And he does not mind saying anything about anybody. And so I think that fear, the fear he has created, in the minds of Republican leaders. But more interestingly, the Republican leaders in 1916 wanted to win the presidency. And they were ready to do anything and bring up anybody that will win them the presidency. And that's what they did in 2016, and now they've become complete victim of their own, inability. Yes, Rubio, Senator Rubio, that's true. So here's the situation that they are now in a position that it is too late to go back. Look at the behavior of the current governor of Florida, who has been attacking Trump in an attempt to position himself to run for the presidency, next year. But suddenly he's in the forefront of those defending Trump now, because it's dangerous for any Republican today to say you are not going to back Trump. He's simply going to go after you, and he has enough supporters in almost all the Republican states, to go after any politician. So everybody is playing it cool. But I think a time would come, and the opinion polls are actually showing this currently in the United States, that he has actually lost quite a lot since he left office. The number of the number of independents supporting him, has reduced, considerably, and the same thing with the Republicans. The number is dropping gradually, and at the end of the day, what happens from not just this court process, but from the trial itself, from what will happen in Atlanta and what will happen in D.C. will, at the end of the day, determine Trump's and the Republican future.
Okay. Trump, on his social media account on Truth Social, said that if he's prosecuted criminally, that there will be death and destruction. He even said that there will be big problems. And he called on his supporters to go to the streets and defend them. So what death and destruction or big problems could he possibly be imagining?
Abatia, I can assure you, again, I make the point, that is from Trump's classical book, playbook. If you watch and if you listen to the mayor and his officials of New York and his officials yesterday,
that's Eric Adams,
you will see that as of yesterday when they spoke, when they gave a press conference, they have not actually dictated any serious threat. They expect some demonstrations and so on, And bear in mind, yes, people might come from other states into New York, but New Yorkers, Trump lived in New York for so many years. It's a well-known resident of New York City. But Trump does not enjoy that popularity in New York itself. So there's absolutely no threat. But look, Abati, I want to go back to what I said about the press conference yesterday. And I remember saying to my wife, I said, look at this press conference. There was the mayor, there was the deputy mayor, there was the, there was the police chief. And I said to her, look at what's going to happen. The deputy mayor spoke for about 2 or 3 minutes. The mayor came and spoke for a while, and then the chief of police was brought in to speak. And when it was time for question and answer, the police chief stepped aside and invited the mayor. And the mayor said, no, it's your beat, so take up the questions. What does that tell you? It shows you a society in which everybody understands their responsibility. There is no big oga that must know everything. If it was in this country, the governor wouldn't yield podium to anybody to speak. It would never happen. And when the police chief spoke, it really explained what they are trying to do and how they will protect New York citizens and so on. Why am I raising this? Is the fact that I have said many times, and I think I've said it on your station also. I keep telling people, if you do not know what to do, for goodness sake, take time off, watch television. You will learn a lot from watching television and how things are done in other parts of the world that will enable us improve our own system and our own behavior. Look at the language that was being used yesterday by these 3 gentlemen. There was not one single threat. Before the election, play your tapes back of the interview you gave to police commissioners. It was all threats. Anybody that is caught will be dealt with. Anybody that we call, no, it's a democracy. Yours is to make sure that you take care of the threats in the society. You don't come all the time and threaten people continuously. And at the end of the day, what happened? It was not the people that created problem for our election. It was the same people that were expected to help ensure that we have a free, fair, and credible election. The same people that were warning us that if we misbehave, there will be problems. They became, they were the ones who created problems for us at the end of the day. So I'm saying we need to honestly spend time to open up our mind, have a worldview, begin to look at the way others do things. And it's very simple. And then we do it here. And I think I came in when you guys were finishing your conversation on passports and visas. Look, why does it take such pain? Why does it take such pain to just get ordinary renewal? You won't believe this, and I'll say it. It took me 9 months. It took my wife and I 9 months to renew her passport in Abuja here, going back and forth. I had to call three. I had to call three former, controller generals before we could get, just to renew, not a new passport, renewal. And then you begin to say to yourself, what's going on? 9 months. Why should people be subjected to such pains, unnecessary pains in this country? Something that could take a week takes 9 good months. 9 good months.
Ambassador.
So a number of things we need to do.
Well, yes, certainly a number of things we need to do. But I was citing the example of Britain, just before you joined us, where people are waiting to get their passports for the past 5 months. And I was saying that, well, it's not just here. It happens elsewhere too. And that story is in one of the newspapers in the UK where I stumbled on it. But thank you very much, Ambassador Joe Keshi, for joining us on The Morning Show.